So is Earth actually a prison? And if so, how do we escape? This is a topic that's actually trending right now. I'm seeing a lot of people in the New Age community and spiritual circles talking about this idea, is Earth a prison planet? But this is, of course, actually a very ancient and old idea. And that's what we're going to see today, that this is discussed in many books that were once banned by the church, especially books like the Secret Book of John and the Apocalypse of Adam and the Secret Gospel of the Egyptians. And they discuss how our world, the earth itself, is like a prison, and also how to escape. So is that true? Is that real? That is what we are talking about today. It's going to be good. So we're going to get started right away. But as always, like and subscribe. It helps out a lot. Remember, this channel isn't just about entertainment. It is about raising consciousness and getting information out there so that people can realize what we are, where we are, and why we're here, so that we can build a better world right now, and we need it. And when you hit like and subscribe, it tells the algorithm to spread this around. It helps out, so I appreciate it. Takes just a second, so just do it right now. Thank you. Also, if you enjoy my work and you want to help my channel grow, support over on patreon.com/MorgueOfficial. Helps out a lot. I really appreciate it. And you get access to all of our members only videos. There's a new one every week. Last week's video was about how your mind is bigger than the universe. So you'll get access to all those if you support at any tier on Patreon, or tier 2 or higher on YouTube by hitting the join button right below this video. Also, beware, there are scammers in the comments that are pretending to be me, saying to join my WhatsApp and join my Telegram. I don't have a WhatsApp. I don't have a Telegram, so don't fall for it. It's a bunch of BS. Also, there are people in groups out there that don't like what I'm doing and don't like what we are doing and are spreading a lot of disinformation and misinformation about me and our group and what we're about. So again, just use your head, use logic and reason, and don't fall for the BS. All right, here we go, my friends. Is Earth a prison planet? Is your soul trapped right now? And is there a way to escape? Is there a way to break free? I've been seeing a lot of people in the spiritual community writing about this, or doing TikToks about this, or doing blogs about this. And this is something I want to talk about. This is an important topic because getting this wrong is actually can lead to a very negative outcome. So this is something that we need to clear up. We need to make lucid. So what we're talking about, first of all, I want to be clear. This is a very old idea. This is a very ancient idea. And a lot of the sources of this idea is found in the secret gospels, or the banned Gnostic books. Now, these books were banned by the church and considered heresies and were almost lost to time. But fortunately, in the 1940s, found buried near the tombs of Egypt, there was some grave robbing going on. And while they were trying to rob these graves near the tombs of Egypt, they found all of these books, all these banned books. And many of these banned books talked about how the earth is actually a prison and it is being guarded over by evil cosmic entities. So, for example, we're just going to talk about a handful of them today, but there are many. All right. So we have the Secret Book of John. We have the Apocalypse of Adam. We have the Gospel of the Egyptians, and they talk about how our world, the earth itself, is like a prison. Now, of course, this doesn't mean a physical kind of prison, but more like an energetic prison, and how our spirits or souls are trapped by a powerful being that isn't the true God, but is pretending to be the true God, or thinks that it is the true God. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this so that we have some background, and then really explore this and see if it's true, and see what some, New Agers are saying about this as well. So we have the Secret Book of John. Now, the Secret Book of John is a extremely fascinating Gnostic gospel. It's one of my favorites, and it talks about how the world we live in was made by a being called the Demiurge, or the Demiurgus, which basically just means craftsman or creator. And this being is actually a dark being, an evil being, a shadowy being. I talk about this a lot in many of my videos, so we won't go into too much detail because I'm sure a lot of you have heard me talk about this before, but I'll give you just a little bit of background. All right. Originally, Reality was a realm of pure mind, a realm of pure light. And within this realm of pure mind and in this realm of pure light, by the way, this is the true God according to Gnosticism, the one. It's one mind of light, one mind of pure thought. And within this mind of pure thought, there are beings of light known as eons. And eons are sort of structuring this divine world and this divine realm of light. Well, one of the eons, whose name is Sophia, which means wisdom, decided to act independently from her partner. You see, all eons were paired together in creative partnerships. Sort of everything was perfectly balanced. But Sophia wanted to create something for herself without her partner. And so she did. And what ended up occurring, what she ended up creating, was this dark being, the demiurge. And this dark being was a being of shadow. And they call this being the dim ruler. And they call him the dim ruler because he is a being of shadow and a being of darkness, but he also has some light from his mother, Sophia, deep inside. So he's this shadowy ruler, not total darkness, but dim. This dim ruler is what they call him. Now, this being has many different names. Yaldabaoth, Saklas, Nibro, and Samael. And they all have certain meanings. Saklas means fool. Nibro means rebel. Samael means the blind god. So Yaldabaoth, the creator, the demiurge, is the blind god, the fool, the rebel. And this being believed that it was the one true God because it looked around and it saw no one but itself, no one higher than itself. And this is because it existed in the realm of darkness. It wasn't able to go into the realm of light. It was a dark being. And so what it did was it began to create, and it gave birth to archons. Now, archons means rulers. So these beings that were birthed from Yaldabaoth were known as archons, dark beings, dark rulers. And they ended up creating the material world. They ended up creating Earth. Now, this story is very detailed. There's a lot to it, and I explain it in my other videos. So we're just going to do a quick recap, a quick rundown. Like I said, a lot of generalities here, but I want to give a good background on this idea. So they create Earth, the demiurge, Yaldabaoth, and the archons. And what they want to do is they want to create beings on this Earth. They want to create a human. And they attempt to create a human. But what it does is it just kind of lies there. It's inanimate. It's dead. They create the human, but it doesn't really do much. So what Yaldabaoth ends up doing is breathing some of its light into the human being. Now, here's what's really interesting about all this is that so Yaldabaoth breathes some of his light that he got from his mother into the human being, and this human being then comes alive and becomes animate. This human being is called Adam. So you see, according to the Gnostic secret book of John, Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, and the archons are what Christianity referred to God and the angels. So God and the angels creating Adam, according to the secret book of John, is actually Yaldabaoth trapping light into the darkness of matter. So this light ultimately, right, it came from Yaldabaoth, which came from Sophia, which originated in the pleroma, the fullness, the realm of divine light, the true reality, the one, the divine. It's ultimately divine because the light is divinity. It's part of the one. It's the one true God. A fragment of that went to Sophia, a fragment of that went to Yaldabaoth, and a fragment of that went to humanity. So Adam was divine, had that divine spark. So Adam has this divine spark, but and this is going to sound a little strange because I don't really have time to get into all the details. But it turns out that humanity is actually more powerful, or can be more powerful, than Yaldabaoth and the Archons. Now that might seem kind of weird. It's like, well, what do you mean? Yaldabaoth created humanity, so how can humanity be more powerful than Yaldabaoth? So if you want to know the full answers to that, check out my other videos on Gnosticism, but it has to do with the fact that humans were created on a divine pattern, and because they were created on a divine pattern and not a pattern of shadow, when they sort of got that spark in them, they were more powerful than Yaldabaoth. And I'm trying to think of a way to, like an analogy to give, you know, like an old computer versus a computer that you might build that's superior and new. And then when you plug it in, you know, it powers up and it's more powerful. It's kind of like that. And I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's sort of a long story. It has to do with Yaldabaoth creating humanity from the blueprints of the divine realm, which makes humanity very, very strong and very powerful, and then imbuing them with light. So anyway, long story short, here's sort of the situation that this book talks about, and where the Gnosticism says we are right now. Okay, so according to this book, Yaldabaoth and the Archons want to create the world, but they require souls or light to power their creations. They want slaves. They want worshipers, because otherwise their bodies would just lay there inanimate. And they want to imbue them with light so that they can worship them and serve them. So they are essentially trapping souls, trapping sparks from the pleroma into the material world to power their infernal creation. But there's a problem. And the problem is that humanity has the potential to actually be more powerful than Yaldabaoth and the Archons by realizing that they're beings of light. So Yaldabaoth and the Archons are constantly in a battle to keep humanity ignorant from what they truly are. So they want to imbue their dark material world with souls to power it, but they also want to keep these souls from remembering what they are, or else these souls will understand that they are divine and more powerful than the dark beings, because they originate from the realm of light. They are beings of light, not beings of darkness. Humanity, ultimately, their soul, their spark is. And so, let me take a drink here. So Yaldabaoth and the Archons are constantly engaged in a battle to keep humanity away from realizing what they truly are. And so Yaldabaoth does this by making humans forget, causing a veil of forgetting. This is, according to the gospel, why he splits Adam and Eve, because Eve in Gnosticism represents a certain aspect of the mind. So in Gnosticism, you have Adam and Eve. First, there was just Adam, but what Yaldabaoth ends up doing is taking a portion of the light from Adam, and creating Eve out of that, which is known as the epinoia of the light. So long story short, what this means is that Adam kind of represents mind or thought, and Eve represents self-reflection. Epinoia means purposeful thinking. So you can think of it as like intuition or critical thinking or self-reflection. So Yaldabaoth split these faculties so that humanity wouldn't be able to look inside and realize what they are. He didn't want Adam to have the capacity for self-knowledge, so took that capacity out of Adam and put it into Eve. Now, in the secret book of John, and humanity is constantly, you'll see there's a storyline of humanity fighting against Yaldabaoth and trying to remember what they are. So you have this occurrence here, but according to the secret book of John, Jesus has them eat from the tree of knowledge. So Jesus appears to them, according to the secret book of John, and has them eat from the tree of knowledge. Now you'll see that's a big difference from what the Bible says, where it is, a serpent that has them eat from the tree of knowledge. In the secret book of John, it's Jesus who has them eat from the tree of knowledge. And so they eat from the tree of knowledge and they begin to realize what they are, but they're still very clouded. It's not, perfect knowledge, but they begin to understand. Now, here's the idea, is that they have a child, and they have a child named Seth. You probably heard of Cain and Abel. Well, Seth was their third son. According to the secret book of John, Cain and Abel didn't come from a union of Adam and Eve. Cain and Abel came from the rulers essaying Eve and getting her pregnant. And so Cain and Abel weren't from Adam and Eve. They were from Eve and the defilement of the rulers. Adam and Eve had a child named Seth. Now, what Seth is incredibly important. It's so important that these Gnostics, we sometimes call them Sethians. And the reason why we call them Sethians is because, remember, Adam and Eve represent two aspects of the mind, divided. Well, Seth, being their child, represents it united. So what Seth represents is the ability to self-reflect, look inside, and realize what one is. And so ultimately, we are all descendants of Seth according to the Bible and according to these Gnostic truths. Because according to the Bible, you had the whole world was flooded, and everyone was killed except for Noah and his family. But Noah and his family were descendants of Seth. So Noah and his family were descendants of Seth, and Noah and his family populated the rest of the world. Now, here's another side to that story, though. Here's another side, and this is where we get to the Apocalypse of Adam. So the Apocalypse of Adam is another book where Adam is talking to his son Seth. And Adam is talking to his son Seth basically about all this stuff. He talks about how he and Eve were originally one being, but then was divided, and is just relaying all this information about how souls are trapped and things of that nature. So another aspect, though, of the Apocalypse of Adam is very interesting because, we just talked about the flood. And according to the Apocalypse of Adam, the flood wasn't, so if you read the Bible, it says God flooded the world because they were becoming wicked and sinful. According to the Apocalypse of Adam, God and his archons flooded the world because people were starting to realize what they were and were refusing to worship him. And so this was another battle between ignorance and understanding. Now, metaphorically, of course, and symbolically, we can understand being flooded by the waters of ignorance. Humans were becoming too smart. They were flooded by the waters of ignorance. And then we, of course, have the gospel of the Egyptians. And the gospel of the Egyptians, it goes more and more into how all reality is created by this being of divine light, and that a dark being called Sackless is Lord over the material world. And the question is, though, how does one escape from the material world? How does one escape? Well, according to all of these books, the way to escape is to realize and come to knowledge of what you truly are. That's why this is known as Gnosticism, which comes from the word gnosis, which is the Greek word for knowledge. It's all about knowledge. Know thyself. And understanding what one is will allow one to have the knowledge necessary to escape from the cycle of incarnations. So they're talking about here, according to the Gnostics, nothing what you see is the real story of our existence. It's all an illusion. It's all a prison planet. We are actually spiritual beings stuck in a physical world. And to escape from that physical world, to escape from that prison, we have to look within and realize that we are powerful, divine beings. Okay, so now the question is, right? Let's say, is this true? Is this real? Is this what is actually happening? Is this what is going on? Now, I did a poll, by the way, before we started today's topic, asking if you had the choice, would you reincarnate on Earth again? And 66% said no, they wouldn't incarnate on Earth again, and 33% said yes, they would incarnate on Earth again. Now, that's very important. There's something very important that I want to talk about, because you'll notice that a lot of themes, even in New Age circles and in Gnosticism, it's very much centered around escape. Escape, 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 escape. But is that actually a good thing? We're going to be exploring that. Now, that's very important. Now, one thing that I want to do is I want to bring up, because I want to have sort of the New Age perspective here on this. I want you to see how very similar this New Age perspective is to what Gnosticism talks about. So I'm going to read some excerpts from this article on medium.com called Is Earth Really a Prison Planet? By Ari Love. And so I'm going to read some excerpts from this to get the New Age position here so we can get a better understanding there and see the connections. And hey, if you like some of the excerpts I read, go over to medium.com and give Ari a follow. I don't know too much about her, but we've read, different excerpts from some of her articles, and I like what she writes. I don't agree with everything, but I like it, and I think her heart's really in the right place, and I enjoy a lot of what she writes. So go give her a follow there. So what is Ari saying about, is Earth really a prison planet? So Ari says, I have received several downloads on this theory, but I have written little on this topic. So there's this idea of downloads in the New Age community where basically you just have flashes of intuition, or for some people, it's actually having a communication with some kind of entity or something like that. So what's really important here is always remembering that we need to weigh things with logic and reason. We're going to be talking about this. We need to weigh things with logic and reason. So a lot of people think, oh, well, if it came from a download from an ascended master, then it must be true. No, that's not the case. It doesn't matter if it's coming from an ascended master or an alien being or a child or an old man or a scientist or a guru. Doesn't matter where it's coming from. Now, sometimes where it comes from can help us, reason about certain things. It can give us hints, but ultimately, we need to weigh the value of the information based on its own merit, rather than where it's coming from. So that's really important. Just because, it's apparently coming from an ascended master doesn't mean it's true. And that's super important to realize, because this is how religions start, and this is how secret societies build BS religions as well. It starts with people finding gold plates that came from an angel, or secret tablets of an Atlantean, or a communication with the secret chiefs, or a communication with the Great Lodge. All these different things where people go, oh, wow, well, then it must be true. We have to weigh the ideas based on logic and reason themselves rather than where they come from. So anyway, Ari says, I heard someone speaking on the prison planet theory, and it inspired me to write this blog. Essentially, the theory says that, and let's see how this relates to what the Gnostic texts say. Okay, so according to this theory, Ari writes, beings are harvesting human energy for personal gain. Once we die, these beings trick us into returning by telling us to go into the light. This reincarnation loop continues until we awaken and discover who we are. So you can see this is almost exactly like the Gnostic narrative. There are beings that are using human energy in some way or another for their own gain. They trick humanity into incarnating again and again. How do you stop the loop? According to Ari, until we awaken and discover who we are. Same thing in Gnosticism when one achieves gnosis. Now, that isn't all that must happen. According to Gnosticism, one also has to defeat the archons. We're going to be talking about what that means. What does it mean to defeat the archons? So, because remember, humanity is more powerful than the archons. So, but I want to get more of the New Age perspective here before we start unpacking all this. Ari says, a long time ago, after this experiment was created, like the physical experiment, like the universe, a group of beings hijacked the multiverse. Okay, so a couple things here. First of all, I do not believe in the multiverse. I believe that the multiverse is a very faulty theory that is completely irrational, illogical, and impossible. It's a violation of Occam's razor and not compatible with reason. And ultimately, multiverse theory comes from a materialist ideology known as the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. So essentially, multiverse, I'll make this real short. Quantum mechanics has baffled scientists for over 100 years. They can't figure it out. They're trying to find a way to try and make sense of quantum mechanics. One way they try and make sense of quantum mechanics is by saying maybe there's an infinity of universes. That's one way they try to make sense of quantum mechanics. However, if you accept that an immaterial domain exists, that a mental domain exists, that a spiritual domain exists, you don't have to invoke an infinite number of universes. So ultimately, multiverse, the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, comes from trying to make sense of the universe by denying that an immaterial, metaphysical, spiritual, energetic frequency domain exists. And this is really important because a lot of New Agers latch on to some scientific theories because they think, oh, wow, that sounds enlightened, like multiverse or consciousness collapsing the wave function. They think it sounds enlightened, but they don't realize that these ideas are actually rooted in faulty ideologies that are actually anti-metaphysical. So multiverse is not like some enlightened idea. It actually stems from a materialist understanding of reality and has so many flaws and so many fallacies and is really problematic. Now, that doesn't mean that different domains don't exist. So what does exist is a multiplicity of parallel domains. In like science fiction, you might think of them as like alternate dimensions, which is different from multiverse. Multiverse is there's an infinity of universes with there's an infinity of yous out there in all these different multiverses or universes within the multiverse. Not so in that's not the case. What does exist is many different domains, and these different domains are actually domains powered by collectives of minds or souls. So real quick, the way to understand this is in a simplistic way, multiverse is kind of like saying that an infinity of TVs exist where every TV can only play a single channel, but the show playing on that channel is slightly different on every TV. That's kind of like multiverse. What's actually going on is there is only one TV, but that TV holds an infinity of very different channels or different shows that you can select from. So rather there being an infinity of TVs and variations of a single show, it is a single TV with a very high number of different kinds of shows all running on parallel. And by tuning your consciousness, you can tune your consciousness into these different channels to experience different domains. Okay, so I just want to clear that up. I don't believe in multiverse. It's not part of our system. It's it relies on materialist ideology and a faulty interpretation of quantum mechanics. And so, but anyway, Ari is saying that there's these beings that hijacked the multiverse. They accomplished this by installing a virus. I call it the Matrix program. These beings did this to keep control of the participants and force them to manifest whatever they wanted. It's important to note that these beings have no power, nor can they manifest. Therefore, harvesting human energy is the only way to remain in control. Again, sort of similar to the Gnostic myth, not exactly the same, but there's some similarities here. Ari says, when they hijacked this experience, they immediately took control by introducing systems that keep humans deaf, dumb, and blind to their innate power. They created false gods and religions and various systems that impact our daily lives. Since humans have no memory of who they are easy targets and bought into the manipulative tactics. Essentially, these humans were unaware and scared, so they looked to others to lead them. Let's see. Their main objective is to keep humans from awakening and achieving a higher level of awareness. Again, you can see big similarity to the Archons and Yaldabaoth, the Demiurgos. Main objective to keep humans from awakening and reaching a higher level of awareness. They do this by inciting fear, chaos, and division. Pretty similar to Yaldabaoth, flooding the world, keeping humanity divided, etc. If we are afraid, we look to them for answers and remain in lower frequencies, similar to how people who are religious would actually be praying to Yaldabaoth and the Archons. And Ari continues by saying, every council, dimension, and star system and planet has an interest in this life experience here, so everyone is working diligently to assist with the upgrade to planet Earth 5.0. In doing so, we will create a new Earth, one without the Matrix programs. Since we would have attained higher awareness, as we will activate our God energy and reclaim our power. As this happens, the beings will no longer have control of our manifestation abilities. The beings are fully aware this is happening, and they are, to put it bluntly, freaking out. Okay, so very similar to the Gnostic myths, with some differences, a little more modern, but a lot of similarities. So let's talk about this. What's going on? Is this real? Is this true? So first of all, what we have to understand is that we have to see, like, where is this information coming from? So Ari is just saying that, oh, this information came from downloads. So she got this from either intuition, or I think she says that she like talks to different beings or something, which fine. That's fine. That's fine. But it doesn't mean that all this information is true. When you get information from an intuitive source, it can often be very symbolic and very archetypal. It's like when you go to sleep and dream. Your dreams are trying to communicate something to you, but they're not literal. They're symbolic and they're archetypal, because your right brain unconscious associated function doesn't communicate in language. It communicates in symbols and metaphors and allegory, in narratives and stories. And when you're in an intuitive state, when you're in a state where you're in a meditative state, a trance-like state, any kind of state like this, you are bypassing the linear processing of your left brain associated functions and are accessing the right brain holistic associated functions, which communicates in symbolism and metaphor and narrative. So what one has to do is, when one gets information like this, you can't just accept it as being true. You have to examine it with logic and reason to see if it makes sense. Just like when you have a dream, your dreams aren't literal. So, I mean, sometimes you can have a literal dream, but for the most part, your dreams aren't literal. They're very symbolic. So if you are having a dream and there is a crying child in your dream, that can mean that you need to work on nurturing your inner child. You need to make more time for play and self-care. All right. So, but if one were to take that literally, you would think it would have something to do with an actual crying child, but it doesn't. It has to do with your inner child and nurturing it. So likewise, when you're getting these intuitive states, when you're getting these flashes, you have to see, are they being literal, or is it symbolic here? And this is the key. So when we talk about Yaldabaoth and we talk about the Archons, okay, here, and I want to make this clear. I believe absolutely that there are beings that are more highly evolved than humans, metaphysical entities. We're all metaphysical entities, but metaphysical entities that are at a very high level of evolution beyond us, that no longer exist in the physical domain, but rather exist in what we call a CFD, or a collective frequency domain. And I believe that these entities have an interest in us, in our evolution. Now, the level to which they perhaps sway things or alter consciousness is speculative. Okay, we can't say for sure. All right, we can't say for sure. Oh yes, absolutely. There are beings called archons that are harvesting our emotions, or that are, how do I say this? Because there's a very fine line here. Okay, like I said, I believe that how we know reality to work rationally does point to the existence of beings higher than us that have an interest in us and have an interest in our consciousness or our energy in a certain way. But the degree to which they are interfering is what is up to interpretation and very speculative. So let me break this down. When we talk about Yaldabaoth and the Archons and Gnosticism, obviously this isn't literally true. Okay, so we know that there wasn't a being that literally created the earth or created a single being, created Adam and Eve. Like, Adam and Eve didn't exist. Okay, these are all metaphors and allegories. But the question is how closely do these metaphors and allegories match up to what's really going on? It's not a one-to-one. It's not a literal thing. The God of the Bible isn't actually an evil archon that created the earth. And no, we've existed and have evolved for billions of years, billions and billions of years it has taken to evolve a human avatar. We weren't just created by a god or anything like that. So these are allegories and metaphors, but how close are they to truth? So we'll see that the Gnostics believed to escape, you had to realize what you are, realize your divinity, which is a lot like achieving higher consciousness and achieving higher awareness, and to defeat the archons. Well, what did they mean by defeating the archons? Well, when you read the Gnostic text, you'll see that the archons and the eons all have names. The eons have names like wisdom and intuition and memory and thinking, and I forget all of them, but you'll notice that they all have to do with faculties of the mind. So the eons represent aspects of the mental universe, aspects of your mind, aspects of the way that your mind works, wisdom, intuition, memory, etc. All these different angels or eons had these names. Now the archons have names like wrath, jealousy, ignorance, etc. So they have to do with faculties of the mind or faculties of emotions, but what might be considered like dark emotions or dark thoughts or lower emotions. So according to Gnostics, defeating the archons involved defeating things like ignorance or wrath or envy, like overcoming these dark aspects of the self. So here's the important thing to realize. What's really important here is creating yourself and overcoming the obstacles in your own mind. You're not going to be able to fight against some cosmic overlord, but what you can do is create yourself by overcoming the resistances in your own mind, or rather not even overcoming, yes, but integrating them. And that's another aspect too. It's not about destroying, but integrating, using those powers to become a being of shadow and light. You see, that's the difference. I like Gnosticism a lot, but I think that there are some errors in Gnosticism. And one of the errors in Gnosticism that I want to point out is that I think it's very negative to be talking about escape, 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 escape all the time. And that's one of the things that I like about Ari, is that you'll notice Ari in that article that she wrote, she didn't say anything about escaping Earth. She talked about transforming Earth, creating what she calls Earth 5.0, creating a new Earth. How does she want to defeat these evil beings? Well, she wants to do it by creating a new Earth and all of us coming together to create a new Earth. And that's one of the things that I really like about Ari. I might not agree with everything, but I like how she's emphasizing the need to create a new Earth. And that's the important fact, is that when you get into this escapist mentality of, oh, Earth is a prison, I have to escape, I have to escape, I have to escape, we will never create a new Earth until we realize that the precise reason that we are here is to learn, to grow, and actualize together. Okay, so I'll tell you what's going on here. We are eternal minds, all right? We are zetas, we are souls. And like everything else, we are going through a process of evolution. How do we evolve? We evolve by interfacing with avatars, reincarnating, and having experiences here on Earth. That is how we evolve as mental entities. We are having experiences here on Earth that lead to our evolution. And together we form a network. We form a network mind. We form a single mind that are individual souls or individual nodes or individual neurons of the absolute or the network mind. And if you want to even put this in terms of AI, you can think of it kind of like we form a neural network, and all the lives that we live is like acquiring training data. It's the training data that we are harvesting as we acquire all these different experiences through. What? There we go. Sorry, I hit my my cable. The archons are clearly manipulating my unconscious to knock this out so that you won't get this important information. I'm just kidding. So the idea here is we are all engaged in interfacing with avatars in the material world to acquire knowledge, acquire experiences, which leads to our soul's evolution. We are evolving, okay? So we are evolving, and the whole point of being on Earth, okay, isn't that it's a prison. It's not a prison. I used to refer to Earth as a prison planet at one time, but I don't believe referring it to it that is helpful, because I think people get the wrong idea of what that means. When you think of prison, you automatically think, oh, want to escape. Well, if we think of the Earth as a prison planet, it's not that we want to escape from it. We want to transform it from a prison planet to a freedom planet. We don't want to escape from it. We want to transform it. So I don't really like to refer to it as a prison planet anymore, because I think it gives the wrong, because prison automatically conjures up escape, and we don't want escape. We want transformation. We're ultimately gods, and what gods do is transform. So anyway, we're localizing here on Earth. We're localizing here on Earth to gather data, to gather experiences, to gather information that's all contributing to our soul's evolution. And what ends up occurring here is that we are operating together. It's not just about singular evolution, but it's about learning how to work together as a network. Okay? So as time goes by, if humanity doesn't obliterate itself, if humanity realizes, and this is what we're doing here in the Neogenian by creating the new beginning, we are creating a new humanity and a new Earth through a new consciousness. And we want to create a teleocratic planetary civilization, meaning a purposeful planet united to maximize the quality of life for everyone. That's our goal. And as we reach a higher awareness, as we reach all awareness, as we reach the pinnacle of all awareness, which is hyper awareness, what happens is we begin to form a network mind. Through our evolving consciousness, through technologies that link us together more and more and more, we start to operate like one and many at the same time. We're all part of a singular network, but we still have our own individual personalities and individual selves, but we operate in this unified network. And as we evolve more and more and more, we achieve a state known as holos independence, where we evolve as a network mind, and we no longer require to interface with avatars anymore. We can use our own internal energies and our own internal frequency patterns to establish a CFD, or collective frequency domain, which is our own internal domain where we exist in, and that would be like like an alternate dimension that we create, if we want to use kind of more like sci-fi type terminology, but it's really a collective frequency domain, or CFD, which we establish through the synthesis of our collective frequencies. And we create that, and we're no longer required to exist in the material realm. So in my opinion, based on what I've studied about reality and extrapolating from these principles, these higher, beings or higher entities are exactly that. They are entities who have achieved a network status, a network mind. Okay. And so what I believe is that Earth is evolving, and there are certain minds that want Earth to, essentially what I believe is that the direction that Earth's evolution can go is trying to be swayed, because you can form a network mind in a couple different ways. You can form a network mind through co-creation and realizing that we are all individual minds working together as a network and helping each other. Or a slave framework can be created with a very negative hierarchy in which those at the top enforce a unity by creating a slave system where everything is working together as one by force, but it's only really benefiting the elite who rule. So you can have network minds that develop in different ways. So I believe that it's likely that some minds are trying to get Earth to evolve one way or another. And that's why it's really important to recognize the elites that are arising on Earth right now, like the billionaire class, who through controlling narratives like social media and virtual reality and augmented reality and AI can start to develop a slave framework. Now, these technologies aren't bad in and of themselves. They can be used to create a positive network mind, but they can also be used to create a slave framework. It's not the technologies themselves that are bad, it's how they are used, and they can be used in a very negative way. So the idea here is that ultimately what is truly important is not so much about escaping. We're not here to escape. Our very purpose here is to create a new Earth, to create ourselves and create a new Earth. Because think about this. If all of us who were obsessed with escaping, people trying to reach heaven or nirvana or ascension or whatever, if all the people trying to reach these other areas or escape would instead focus on creating a better quality of life here for everyone, Earth would become heaven. The kingdom of heaven on earth here and now, a state of consciousness and a state of being that we can create. Now, it's never going to be perfect, of course, but you get what I'm saying. We can create Earth into a magnificent experience to the point where you're going to want to come back. The only reason why you don't want to come back is because it's a very poor, low quality experience right now. It's like playing a game that is not fun at all, that gives you painful electric shocks every time you make a mistake, or it's like playing a game in Saw or something. Yeah, of course you're not having very much fun and you're not going to want to do it. But we can create magnificent games. We can create exhilarating games. We can make the physical experience a wondrous experience where you're like, oh, wow, that was great. I want to do that again. So that is what we need to do. We need to shift our energy away from escapism. That's the negative frame of mind. We need to shift away from it. You are a God. Gods do not run away. Gods don't escape. Gods do not diminish. Gods do not extinguish. Gods create. Gods transform. Gods give birth. Gods nurture. That's what they do. And so we are here to create a new humanity and a new Earth. And we do that by raising our consciousness and realizing what we are. And if you're too obsessed with trying to escape, or the idea that, oh, there's these beings trying to lock us in or whatever, that's a big distraction. What really matters, and it's an interesting thing to think about. And some of it, some of it's not outside of the realm of possibility. For example, maybe there are negative beings that, let's say, feed off negative emotions. That's possible. We can't rule that out. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. What matters is transforming yourself and transforming this world. And then we can evolve to a state where we are beyond this physical world and we'll have all the knowledge about all the entities we want, because we will be a collective mind, a network mind, a higher entity that has transcended the physical world. We have achieved network consciousness at that point. And so the incredibly important thing here is that this stuff is, very interesting to talk about. And we talk about it a lot, but it's always important to not get distracted. And remember, what is ultimately important is transforming yourself and transforming the world. And the reason why I say that is that you are a part of the world. So there are many people out. The best thing that you can do is work on expanding your consciousness. Understand how the world works. Know thyself. It's been said over and over and over again for thousands of years, and humans just refuse to do it. Know thyself. Look within. Seriously. That's not just some, chicken soup for the soul aphorism or something. All the knowledge of what you are, where you are, and why you are here is inside. You just have to unlock it. And that requires a lot of introspection. It requires a lot of learning. It requires a lot of understanding. But you have the ability to do that. You have the ability to reach a higher state of awareness. The higher state of awareness isn't like some theoretical idea. It's right here, right now. You can achieve it. You have the power to do it. Anyone who wants to put in the work can achieve it, can do it. And that's what's necessary for helping to create a new world, is spreading this new consciousness, spreading this new awareness, because this new awareness, all awareness, is the realization that we're all interconnected. And when we realize that we're all interconnected, I won't want to hurt you and you won't want to hurt me, because you'll realize that's like hurting ourselves. It'd be like hitting yourself in the hand with a hammer. So what is important to understand? What is important to understand is that we are here not to escape. This obsession with escapism is one of the things that's harming our spiritual growth and spiritual development. And I love that Ari agrees with this as well when Ari says that we are here to create a new earth. Agreed, 100%. She should start a YouTube channel, actually. I hope she does, because I like the message that she is communicating. We need to create a new earth. We need to create a new humanity. And we need to do that by working on ourselves and raising our consciousness and helping others as well. So try and get out of your head, this whole idea about escaping or what. It's all a distraction. The real work is right here and right now. Like in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus Christ says, the kingdom of heaven is within you and all around you. It's not a place you go to when you die. It's not in the sky. It's not under the sea. It's right here and now, within you and all around you. So my friends, I hope you enjoyed that. We had a lot that we talked about today and a lot about Gnosticism. So if you want to check out my other videos, I have playlists on the Secret Book of John, the Apocalypse of Adam, all the books we mentioned. I have playlists on all of them. So go check them out. They're really interesting. Please like and subscribe to spread this information around. Like I said, it helps out a lot. This is how we wake up the world, get people to understand a new consciousness. And if you enjoy my work and you want to help my channel grow, consider supporting on patreon.com/MorgueOfficial. Helps out a lot. I really appreciate it. And you get access to all of our members only videos. There's a new one every single week. And you can also support on YouTube at tier 2 or higher to get access to that as well. And as always, remember, hey, this isn't church, so don't feel obligated to support monetarily. You don't have to. There are plenty of free ways you can support, like liking and sharing and subscribing. But I do want to shout out those who do support. It helps out a lot. I really appreciate it. Big shout out to Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, the Halloween Mom, DB, Fashida, Enki, Nusalina, Masam, Eric Fire, Christopher Smith, the Eternal Empire, and everyone else. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you very much.